Hi, I'm here to talk to you about DXM today. Why I love it, why I kind of think you shouldn't use it. Well, first off, I'm going to start by saying if you're ever planning on using it, or trying it, doing it with someone else, giving it to someone else, recommending it, anything you want to know any more about it, read the DXM FAQ on Arrowhead by William White. It takes you 45 minutes, maybe an hour to read the whole thing. You'll learn everything you ever need to know about the technical parts of this drug, what it'll do, how it'll work. That's the basis of a lot of my research, well, preliminary research. But please read it. It's important. Um, so, what's DXM? It's the active ingredient in Robitussin. It's a cough suppressant. It's a NMDA receptor antagonist, which not 100% sure what exactly that means, but those are some of the same receptors that receive some of the same neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, because there's a major serotonin uptake and norepinephrine uptake that happens when you take large amounts of DXM because of these receptor properties. It blocks whatever is there to stop the flow of these neurotransmitters. So it's a dissociative, kind of like ketamine or PCP. It manages that same action. And so what that action ultimately does is floods the your receptors with neurotransmitters and blocks them off, and it ultimately starts to separate them um, to kind of stop. It blocks them off from receiving sensation because they become so flooded, um, and it essentially cuts your brain off from your body to the point where if you experience a full dissociation, you'll feel as though it's an out of body experience or an ego death, um, and you sort of instantly become unaware of your body being there. You feel like your brain's floating over in kind of like an empty space. Just the world has opened up in an infinite size because your body's not there to scale it. So things can seem huge or tiny, and you can feel huge or tiny because the space is yours for your mind to occupy. Um, you can get DXM in Robitussin cough syrup. You want to get the blue bottle, or you want to have any the package that looks like this. Usually it's green or white. Sometimes they're blue, I think. But these are the liquid gels. They come in packs of 20. They're 15 milligrams each, 300 milligrams a bottle. Um, that's what I used to take, but now whenever I've used it, I prefer the syrup. You sometimes do throw up from the syrup, but usually you feel a lot better after you throw up from the syrup. While the pills, you throw up and you feel a lot worse. Um, so yes, the bottles, the blue bottles, usually you absolutely the most important thing that you want to get when you want to look out for is that the only active ingredient is dextromethorphan. That's very important. I'll get to that later. But yeah, the blue bottles of the Robitussin usually are the good ones, or you can buy the shit that's called, I don't know, Mr. Chocolate or something like that. Dr. Chocolate, something like that. It's a kid's formula that's DXM only, but it's thick, it's hard, and it will make you throw up. If you really hate the taste, if you can't swallow pills and you can't handle the taste of cough syrup, you can go for it, but I don't recommend it. It's thicker than chocolate syrup, and it tastes like you're drinking pure, thick chocolate syrup. It's pretty horrible, actually. Did not enjoy it. It made me throw up a lot more than anything else ever did. But if you're a chocolate person, that might be your thing. It's a kid's formula though, so you have to drink a shit ton of it because it's very low dosage. So again, don't recommend it. Um, for other active ingredients, if it has guaifenesin in it, big no-no. You can't take more than 2,000 to 2,500 milligrams of that before you will be physically sick, and some people are physically sick from that at 500 to 1,000 milligrams. It's painful if you take a large amount of guaifenesin, and it can send you to the hospital. That's an expectorant. If you see expectorant listed as an active ingredient, guaifenesin, don't take it. That's asking for trouble. Same goes for acetaminophen. That's usually in NyQuil or Tylenol formulas. Definitely avoid acetaminophen. That will cause liver failure, send you to the hospital for sure. You will have the worst time of your life. Absolutely do not take anything with acetaminophen in it, even if it's dextromethorphan, it's another active ingredient. Do not take acetaminophen. Diphenhydramine, some people like to take that as it's in Benadryl and it's in Unisom. And Unisom is just a 50 milligram Benadryl, actually. People like to take those sometimes to, it gives a small visual aspect and a little more upkick, I guess, to your experience. But it can lead to some very, very, very unpleasant hallucinations. Yeah, it can lead to some very, very unpleasant hallucinations, especially if you take diphenhydramine alone. It's weird nights, bad, don't do it. And anything with an antihistamine, I can't exactly recall what the active ingredient, that's usually the antihistamine, it's the one that's in triple C's. Corset and cold cough and whatever, chest, I guess. Yeah, don't take triple C's. Bad idea, because those have antihistamines, and those are bad for your liver long term, and you can overdose on them just from a pure reaction standpoint to so many antihistamines. You can die from it. Alright, sorry, a little interruption. Now, I guess, on to how and why I started. So, started as a school project, with lots of bullshit and a little fancy language. I was an IB student my senior year in high school, and I was taking IB World Religions for my IA, which is kind of like a year-long investigative assignment, individual project where it's a full, you take up basically 2/3 of the year working on it. It's just a long research paper that you write, and I used mine as to investigate the link between spirituality, specifically in Christianity, because it had to be more targeted. That wasn't really what I really wanted. The relationship between spirituality and high doses of dextromethorphan. So I did a lot of really shitty research, which involved me taking a shit ton of this stuff over the course of about a month and a half, and then writing about what happened and how I felt and what it was doing to me for the most part, myself being a number of people. But it was a little bit easier to feel that way because it kind of gave me a number of different personalities between my sober self and my DXM self and my post-DXM self and my fiending for DXM self. So I was 17 at the time, and everything that I used in that experiment I actually stole. I felt really shitty. One of the main reasons that I eventually stopped doing DXM was because I hated it. I didn't like having to steal it. It was easy. It was easy as hell. If you're ever thinking about stealing it, don't go to Walmart. You will get caught. I never did, because I guess I was good at it. No one who I've ever met that's been arrested for stealing has ever been caught anywhere besides Walmart. If you get caught at Walmart and you have to go to classes for it, every single person you'll meet there got caught at Walmart. Just happens. Don't do it. Be smart. Don't steal. It's still bad. Don't steal from those places. what's important to consider when you're taking it um, is the dosage. Don't listen to anyone who says, "Oh, just take this amount. Just take 15 pills. Just take 25." Don't listen to them. That's some dumb shit. Calculate your dosage. Know how much you're getting into, and know what you should expect from what you're taking, because of the way that it works in different levels and plateaus. It's important to calculate your dosage based upon your body weight. So know that the way you do that is to find your body weight in kilograms. Um, well, actually, first you want to find what what the dosage is of what you'll be taking normally. A 4 ounce bottle of the blue Robitussin, 15 milligram DXM, or no, 30 milligram DXM in each dosage. Those are 354 milligrams of DXM per bottle. It's a 118 milliliter bottle. The ones that are the 20 capsules of the liquid gels, those are 300 each. So let's just say I weigh 50 kilograms. I don't. I weigh more than that, but let's make the math easy. If I weigh 50 kilograms and it's about 110 pounds, by the way. If I were to take 40 pills to 2 bottles of the liquid gels, 600 milligrams. That's 600 milligrams, and you want to divide that by the number of kilograms that your body weighs, because the dosage should be calculated in milligrams per kilogram. And so 600 over 50, I'd be getting 12 milligrams per kilogram. That's what it is. That's a pretty high dose. If you only weigh 50 kilograms, 40 liquid gels will get you pretty deep into it. But yes, that's the way that you want to do it. You want to find the total number of milligrams that you're going to consume, or that you, I guess, will consume, and then divide it by your body weight. Or if you're trying to get to a specific dosage in milligrams per kilogram, say you want to get to 7.5 milligrams per kilogram, you'll multiply that times your body weight, perhaps 50 kilograms, and then you'll find the number of milligrams you need to take to get that dosage. So that's what you should always do. Definitely always do that before you ever try this. So, okay, the plateaus. There's 4 plateaus. Each of them has very distinct stages. The first plateau is from about 1 to 2.5 milligrams per kilogram. The second plateau is from about 2.5 to 7.5 milligrams per kilogram. From 7.5 to 15 milligrams per kilogram is considered the third plateau, which there's a very, very distinct jump from the second to the third plateau. And when you hit that jump, it's called a transitional phase, because there's a very distinct change in your perceptions of the outer world at that point. And then beyond 15 milligrams per kilogram is the fourth plateau. Under no circumstances should you try to take a fourth plateau dose without a trip sitter. I've only ever taken 2 fourth plateau doses. I've taken DXM in the last year. Well, I guess it was a little over a year. It was a year and a month ago when I started, and in that time I've probably taken it at least 60 times. I did a lot at the beginning of last year. Again, I'll get into that later. You don't. I've only ever taken 2 fourth plateau doses, both of which I did without a trip sitter. Both times it was a very bad idea. I don't remember them very well. You won't remember them very well for sure, especially if you don't have someone else to bounce anything off of or realize is there. And yeah, it's very important you have a trip sitter, because you can panic for sure when you hit that fourth plateau. If you're all alone and you think you've died or you're really all alone, you'll panic. So be safe. And even third plateau doses, I think, have someone around. It's smarter. The first plateau is kind of it's calm. It's nothing much to it. Music sounds pretty cool. Um, that's the first thing you'll notice for sure is music sounds a lot more lively and you just feel it a little bit better. Something about it just makes music sound so much better. Um, but besides that, and maybe a little bit of a feeling of tiredness, or not even tiredness, sometimes like a little lightness, um, but just kind of like a muscle relaxing. You'll get that sensation in the first plateau, but it's very subtle. A lot of people don't notice it, but you should definitely start at the first plateau, even though it's insignificant, before you try the second plateau, and before you try the third plateau, and before you try the fourth plateau, if you ever try the fourth plateau. Usually, if you've taken a third plateau dose and it didn't go well, don't try to take a fourth plateau dose. It's not for you. Just, you have to accept that it's not for you. Um, the second plateau feels kind of, it's like being drunk without, it's an interesting feeling. It's like being drunk on a bit of a stimulant, actually, because um, I've taken DXM second plateau doses many times during the day, and before workouts and things like that. It gives you this incredible feeling, and I've taken it before concerts and things like that, and it's great. Um, it definitely a distortion of sound, and music sounds incredible. That's the second plateau for concerts. If you ever take it recreationally, it's wonderful. Still be careful with your behavior. You do lose your inhibitions a little bit. You develop, because your body starts to become numb to some of its normal limits and things like that, and your brain doesn't realize that, you can become oddly strong and flexible in ways that you aren't expecting. And there's been times where I've been exercising. I was a wrestler, and I would be working out, and I'd be doing it on days afterwards where it would still be a little bit left over in me, or where I would take it during the day, and I would just feel so like I would be scared almost for my body, because I felt like I was doing new things with my body. I was like touching new areas I could never get to, stretching and different things, and feeling just like I was running out of my legs almost, like I was gonna just, like my muscles were just gonna rip out of my skin because my skin had never gone that fast before. Some crazy things like that. It's just an incredible feeling like that. And so it's the second plateau is much more interesting, though the low doses and the high doses are very different in their effects. The high doses in the second plateau are much more pronounced, and it does cause balance issues and things like that sometimes, so you do have to be careful. Um, the third plateau is where things start to get very interesting. Um, you'll get double vision almost for sure. That's almost a given, and it happens for quite a long time. You can't be scared of it, but yes, you'll get double vision and see almost cross-eyed for a little while, and things start to get really choppy, especially high plateau doses, almost kind of like your eyes are having, it's like a strobe light kind of in your consciousness, where things really do seem like you're looking back and forth and you're not getting a smooth picture. It's getting chopped up into different frames, kind of like you're watching old film and the black bars are extra wide, and so it doesn't look right, and you're seeing extra black in the space and things are forming kind of like continuous still images, like a flip book almost, rather than a smooth video as we're accustomed to nowadays with high frame rate cameras and things like that. And as your eyes capture things, it's just slows down your perception of things and chops it up visually. But you'll be very overcome by a mental fog cloud, I suppose. It's the high, I suppose, that you can feel and what makes it enjoyable to people. Um, it's definitely what I enjoy about it, but it stays there in your head for quite a long time, and it feels like it's, if you've ever felt just so insanely high from smoking weed before, like your whole head was like you couldn't even form thoughts. That's kind of close to the feeling that you get, but you can still form thoughts, and you'll be forming quite a lot of thoughts actually. You can think, your mind will be jumping all over the place, racing, and um, that's why it's like tripping, really. It's it's really intense, and so after that, the fourth plateau is, it's hard to describe. You you can fall asleep or go unconscious, whatever you want to call it. Um, you just want to lay there and kind of think and be, or maybe watch TV or something, but it's nice to do in the dark for sure. Um, DXM is very nice to do in a dark room, and with music on. Music's very enjoyable still, but it's less so what you're focused on at the high plateaus because it becomes a background effect, really. Yeah, things can start to go black visually. Your mind is just, it, the cloud becomes so thick that your body stops being there because the cloud surrounded you to the point that you can't see or feel your body. And that's when the ego death happens, and when you can have an out-of-body experience when you hit that fourth plateau. It's because it's just enveloped you totally, and you'll feel like you're a new person, or like you're no person at all. You'll just feel like a floating brain. That can happen for sure. But I still have very limited fourth plateau experiences, so I can't speak very much or profoundly on my experiences because both of them ended a bit prematurely, unfortunately, where I ended up passing out and sleeping for 12 to 14 hours actually. Um, it's exhausting, but if you continue to do DXM multiple times, you do build up a tolerance to it. I was taking very, very high doses, way too quickly in succession. Started out once a week. I would do it if I got the opportunity once a week, and then it was 2 or 3 times a week. And as I started to go on, I was taking more and more, and I was taking 60 of those liquid gels, 80 of those liquid gels, 60 liquid gels in a bottle of syrup, like 1,000, 1,200 milligrams, 1,300 milligrams, ridiculous. And you do build up a tolerance to it, but eventually you'll definitely, you can become psychologically addicted to it. If you like this drug, there's a very good chance that you'll become addicted to it. Not because it's physically addictive, well, it somewhat is, but the withdrawal's not very pronounced. It's just so incredibly psychologically addicting, this drug. It's not like any other kind of trip I've tripped on acid many times, and there's been I never just craved it. But DXM, I craved it so much for so long, and I would feel horrible because I would be driving home and I'd drive past 2 or 3 stores, and then I'd go past my house and go to the next store, and I'd go get some pills there and go and take them that night just because I had to. And it really bothered me. It took me, in that time where I did 50 to 60 of those trips was from January until the end of April. And it wasn't good. Yeah, it just turned into a very shitty time to keep going back and taking more and having to take them and always craving them and always thinking about it. And it didn't help that I was doing that research paper and that I had, for a short amount of time, I had to do it because I had to get a number of sessions in. But after I got 4 or 5 sessions in January, I was just doing it for myself at that point. And it really, yeah, you have to realize at a point where you start to crave it, where you really want to do this drug, and because you're so interested in it and the feelings it gives you and the places you can explore in your brain while you're sitting there in the dark tripping on this. Because of that, it's scarily drawing and addicting, and there's been a number of times where I've fucked with things like Oxycontin and Percocet, different opiates and things like that, and I really, just like almost every other person who's ever used them, they love it because it feels great. But I've had a tremendously easier time pushing away pills that I've gotten and that than I ever had with DXM. It was overwhelming, but really, I was just having a lot of problems physically with it because around early April, I had found a dealer for some acid, and I wasn't satisfied with it. I had some great acid, and the first time I ever tried it, I took 4 hits, barely felt a thing. And I know it was good because I bought a strip of 10. I took 4 hits. I gave 3 of my friends 2 hits each, and one of them ended up in the hospital after taking 1 tab and freaking out and ended up stabbing his floor because he didn't like his floor for some reason, and he tried to attack his mom. And another friend of mine, about a week later, he took the 2nd tab that I gave him, and he ended up in the hospital as well not from anything bad happening, but just he zoned out, and his parents saw him zoned out and sitting there staring at nothing and not responsive for about 2 hours. So that was kind of his own fault, but it was good stuff, and I was taking 4 tabs of it and wondering, what's wrong? Why can't I trip? Why is nothing happening? And I realized it was the DXM, and I did some research on it because I was thinking, like, I had been doing a lot of that. I thought maybe, like, I had even smoked when I was tripping and still barely nothing. I was taking the first time I tripped, I had to take 10 tabs. 10 120 microgram tabs, and I didn't want to do that anymore, so I decided to quit the DXM. It took about a month and a half before I finally was able to just stop thinking about it and get it out of my head constantly and stop wanting to stop at the same places that I used to go to and do the same routines that I had created to go get my pills. And yeah, it was having a serious impact on. That's when I knew also it was just having a serious impact on my brain. If I'm taking cough medicine to the point where my brain isn't responding to LSD unless I take 1,200 milligram or micrograms of it, which that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't have to happen ever. Um, and also, I tried ketamine, which affects the same receptors as DXM, and it's really um, I most people totally dissociate and have a K hole anywhere from 200 to 300 milligrams, and I snorted about a half gram and didn't even come close to hitting a K hole. And that's just when I knew, like, I've done way too much of this stuff. I need to stop and figure this out and get it under control. And um, since then, I stopped for about 7 months consecutively. A little while ago, a few weeks or a month or so ago, I did it 2 to 3 times. Just um, I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it just created a really serious cross tolerance issue for, well, one, a number of cough medicines don't really help me anymore. Um, Mucinex works nicely. Mucinex is one that works very well because it's almost entirely guaifenesin, um, which I didn't take too much of. But um, yeah, ketamine, acid, I'm sure mushrooms and PCP or anything else you ever might want to trip on would probably be impacted by this. Um, so that's another one of the serious problems with long-term use and building up that tolerance. It took me until from the end of April when I quit until October to get to the point where I was able to trip on 1 to 2 tabs like a normal person can. Um, so it was a long cleaning out process for my body, but um, and another one of the things is just when I would get I call them the DXM sweats. The day after I would do DXM, I would wake up many times in the middle of the night, many times, every 30 to 40 minutes. I'd wake up covered in sweat and freezing cold. And no matter what I wore, I couldn't do anything to stop it. And for the day or the next 2 days after I would do it, it would happen without fail. And when I was taking it so often, it was happening every single night. It was happening. Well, that was another thing that really prompted me to quit was I didn't get a good night's sleep for about 3.5 weeks because of how much of this stuff I was taking and not realizing that was why it was happening. Because the nights when I would take it, it wouldn't happen to me because I would take it and I'd fall asleep and I'd sleep through the night and I'd be blissfully under its guise until I woke up and not have any of the problems. But the next night, when my body wanted to purge itself, it was a miserable night and it made me feel terrible and I did not get good sleep whatsoever. And even when I'd go, one thing you surely have to be careful about when you've taken a large amount of DXM, especially if you've taken it late at night and fallen asleep, is when you wake up the next day, you can most certainly fall asleep on this drug and wake up and still be fully under its spell. I mean, sleep does nothing to diminish its effects. And I definitely would say this because it's a caution that if you need to drive somewhere early the next morning, do not take this drug late at night. I had a horrible experience doing this actually, I guess it was the second time I took it. I took it very late at night, about 11 o'clock, and I only slept from about 5:30 in the morning until 7, and I had to drive at 7:30 in the morning. and I started driving, and I instantly felt, within about a minute, I just realized how wrong it was. But I couldn't stop driving because I needed to be at work and I needed to go. And it felt like I was driving drunker than I had ever even attempted to be in a car for sure. Um, and I felt horrible about it. I just felt slow, like I couldn't react, like I couldn't see things, and like my muscles weren't responding because they were so relaxed, and that like lightness that they feel was just, I felt so out of control. Um, and so I would definitely say be wary. That is something that goes away as you develop a tolerance, that next morning feeling of being intoxicated. But don't confuse that afterglow feeling of DXM with um, when you're still tripping, because when you're still tripping, it's a dangerous thing to do, to be out there driving. You're not under control. Um, and so I would especially, and that's again why if you have to drive, I would say don't take this during the day. It's not asking for anything good. Um, yeah, it's not recommended. But some people do take this actually, second plateau doses, as a bodybuilding supplement, as in the sort, because it gives you that strange energy and that weird ability to push your body beyond where your mind usually says no. Um, a bit like the opposite of steroids. Instead of repairing your muscles quicker, it's kind of allowing you to break them more efficiently and more at a time without the same pain. So it's sort of, it's analogous but very juxtaposed. Um, so what I did want to get into was taking this with other drugs as well. When I've taken it frequently, a few weeks ago, I actually took about 900 milligrams, which was a mid third plateau dose, about 13 milligrams per kilogram, which was the highest dose I'd taken in 8 months. And then I took a tab and 3/4 of some 100 microgram acid, and it was a very pleasant night. I will say that it was a very pleasant mixture. There wasn't much I didn't enjoy about the night. It was the best part of both things. Tripping and the strobing effects combined were very visually impressive, and music sounded incredible. Recommend the band Sean. Their album Grow is pretty stellar to listen to while tripping. This is Waves playing, by the way. Hopefully they don't like hear this and try to take this down or anything, because I'm trying to promo their music and they like drugs. Um, but that's all I've ever mixed it with besides weed, and weed is, I think, a must-have for DXM. If you're going to do it, definitely have some weed. It makes it infinitely better, um, and more comfortable, and it'll settle your stomach for sure, as long as you aren't coughing up a lung and making yourself more sick, because it definitely helps take away some of the nausea. Um, but that's about what I have to say on DXM, I suppose. I just can't stress enough, read the DXM FAQ before you do this, for sure. Make sure you're getting quality products. Don't buy any cheap crap Chinese formulations and shit like that, dollar store formulas, anything with any other active ingredients besides dextromethorphan. HBr, hydrobromide, or you can buy Delsum, which has dextromethorphan polystearex. That's an extended release formula. Some people prefer the Delsum brand, actually. It tastes much, much better. It tastes not horrible at all. It actually, um, yeah, make sure you're getting good formulas, and don't do this without a trip sitter, especially at the high plateaus. It's very important, so be cognizant of that. I guess that's about all I have to say for now. Sorry, this is going to be really poorly edited because I know there's a lot of parts that are cut up and shit like that, but I hope that this was beneficial to you. And feel free to ask questions in the comments. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.